Welcome to the In Love with PMDD podcast. I am your host, Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist, and I help you stop the monthly PMDD breakups. PMDD is premenstrual dysphoric disorder. It is in approximately 1 in 5 women, and it makes you want to break up with your partner approximately 1 to 2 weeks before your period every single month. So as someone who has suffered with PMDD for over 18 years, I dedicated my doctorate practice to helping partners navigate those monthly PMDD breakups with everything from attachment styles, triggers, sensitivity to noise, sensitivity to touch, all of the things that you really struggle with when you're in PMDD. And I also dedicated my dissertation to a phenomenological study of the relationship experiences of partners of individuals who suffer with premenstrual dysphoric disorder. So I'm not just here to help the sufferer, the one who is suffering with PMDD. I am here for the partners as well. So if you need those private sessions, make sure you go to inlovewithpmdd.com and get those tools. So let's get into this week's PMDD trauma transformational tools that is going to help you stop the monthly breakups and stop the suffering and stress in your PMDD relationship. Let's get into it. Today, I want to talk to you about the top 10 mistakes that happen in PMDD relationships. This could be the top 10 mistakes that you make as a PMDD sufferer or the top 10 mistakes that you make as a PMDD partner. And I really wanted to talk about this because I've really been on this journey since my breakup of really taking full responsibility for my part in the breakup, my part in thinking of what is it that I could have done better. And this is a very humbling thing because a lot of times with PMDD, when you recognize that PMDD was one of the main issues in your relationship, then you start to tend to blame PMDD as if it is a separate entity from you. And then you think, well, that had nothing to do with me. It had everything to do with PMDD, without really recognizing that PMDD is not our fault. It's our responsibility. That's what I always tell my private clients. So did you ask to have premenstrual dysphoric disorder? Absolutely not. But is it your job to manage it in your relationship? That's absolutely yes. And so when I was really thinking about my breakup and I was really just asking myself, and you have to kind of put your pride to the side. When you originally do this, you can't be in that mindset of thinking about everything that your partner did, everything that your partner did to trigger you, everything that your partner did to make your PMDD symptoms worse. You almost have to get into that mindset of saying, if I take them out of it, if I just think about my part in the relationship, what could I have worked on better? And not in a way of blaming yourself and shaming yourself and feeling, bad about yourself, but more so in a way of looking at the relationship and saying, what is it that I could have done in order to reduce the suffering? That's always what I ask my private clients. What is it that because that's what we really need to work on. If a relationship ends and you have PMDD within the midst of it, I always say, okay, what is it that you think, like from the outside looking in, what is it that you could have done to reduce the suffering within the relationship? And if you're not at that point, if you're not self-aware enough to really look within yourself intrinsically and say, it's not all my partner's fault that the relationship ended. It's not all them because they triggered me. Like I had some part in this too. Then there's really going to be a level of bitterness and resentment towards the relationship ending because you're going to automatically think that it's the other person. You're going to automatically think it's all their fault and there's nothing that you could have done about it. And I remember looking at my breakup and saying, you know what? I didn't choose well when it comes to my luteal phase when I'm in PMDD. That's been my biggest, and I don't want to say regret because I learned so much, but it's been my biggest thing where it's like, you knew better than this. Because I would never counsel any of my private clients and say, just choose a partner in your follicular phase. And if they're good in your follicular phase, when everything's great, then that's the partner for you. But that's exactly what I did. I chose a partner when I was in my good days. And I loved how we were when I was in my good days. But then when I got into PMDD, it didn't work and I started to overshadow it. So I would say the first mistake that I made was ignoring the red flags in the beginning. You know that saying where it's like, whatever the reason is that you break up are probably the same red flags that you ignored in the beginning are the same reasons why you break up in the end. And that is so true, even in PMDD relationships, because when I look back, I saw the times where I was triggered in PMDD and I just ignored it because the follicular phase, we were so good. We were so compatible. So I thought I could just handle it. And I almost put the burden and the pressure on myself and was like, listen, why would you throw away this good person that you have this amazing time with in your good days just because you can't handle them when you get into PMDD? Like I almost thought it was something that I needed to do to change. And then over time, it would get better. And instead, it got worse because I was consistently getting triggered in my PMDD days and our personalities were just not aligned. Our personas, who we were and again, he was the same person all month long, but who I was in my luteal phase was not compatible with who he was throughout the whole month. And that was on me. You cannot expect your partner to shapeshift into two separate personalities. You have to choose a partner that has the same personality that works with you in your luteal phase and your follicular phase. And I know that's a very strategic thing to do. And I really worked on mastering that because I'm really in the mindset of choosing a partner where if I have certain times of the month AKA my luteal phase, where I'm more internal, where I'm more introverted, where I'm not outgoing, and I just need to rest more and I need to take care of myself more. I need to know, is this going to trigger the person that I'm with? Is this going to trigger my partner? Are they going to take it personally? Are they going to take it as a personal attack? Are they going to get offended when I spend less time, just being bubbly me? Because some people can't handle that. Some people can only handle you in your follicular phase. And when I recognize that, it's not on me to require something of someone, like I talked about in the last episode, it's not on me to require something of someone that they genuinely don't have. And so the first mistake that you make in your PMDD relationship is not acknowledging PMDD, right? You kind of go through the relationship and you're in your good days, and then when PMDD comes, you try to like hide it. You try to act like you don't have it. You try to not talk about the symptoms. You're not communicating with your partner. You're dismissing or underestimating the impact of PMDD on the relationship. So then your partner is like, look, they're confused because they're noticing that you're different, but you're not really telling them why you're different. They're thinking that it's something that they did wrong, and you're not really pinpointing it and say, hey, I have premenstrual dysphoric disorder. This is something that I deal with on a monthly basis. A lot of times when you're dating, you may not want to say that early on. I've counseled a lot of private clients where they're not wanting to tell their partner early on that they have PMDD because they don't want to scare them away. But what happens is you try to pretend like you don't have PMDD. And if you end up being with someone who is very intuitive, they're going to notice the shift. They're going to notice that you go from being one way in your luteal phase to being another way in your follicular phase, and it's going to impact your relationship and how you all connect. And so the next mistake that you can make in your PMDD relationship is you take the mood swings personally. So your partner might start to internalize the emotional ups and downs as a personal attack. This happens to me every single month so often, to where every single time I would go into PMDD and I would be more internal, be more quiet, not be as expressive, my partner would think that I was personally attacking them, like I was doing something to them. And it led to unnecessary fights and conflict because I was consistently explaining myself. They would be like, what's wrong? And I'm like, nothing's wrong. Because in reality, a lot of times when I was in my luteal phase, nothing was genuinely wrong with me. I just didn't have a lot of energy. I had a lot of fatigue. I just wanted to lay around. I wasn't as bubbly, and what can happen is your partner can be so attracted to you in the follicular phase that they almost feel like they can pull it out of you. Like while you're in PMDD, they can pull that other version of you out. And it doesn't work like that. They have to be accepting of who you are in your luteal phase, who you are in PMDD, just like they're accepting of who you are in your follicular days. And if you are with a partner that is clearly shown you that that's not a thing, like they're not attracted to, you in PMDD, that's going to be a problem within the entirety of your relationship. And that's what I really had to come to terms with is really thinking to myself, okay, when I'm in my luteal phase and when I'm in PMDD, what is my personality? And completely being authentic with who I am in that phase with the person that I'm dating to see if it's something that they can handle. I didn't do that before. Before I tried to hide it. I tried to act like my follicular self when I was in PMDD and it didn't work. It caused me to suffer. There was like a resentment within me because I was suffering in silence. I was suffering trying to portray myself like everything was fine when it really wasn't, because I automatically started to think that that was expected. And of course, it's expected if I've been doing it on a monthly basis. I put the pressure on myself, but I was actually internally, subconsciously blaming my partner for that. And so what happens is my partner started to take my mood swings, my emotional ups and downs that happen every month in my luteal phase, personally. Like I was trying to personally attack them, like I was doing it on purpose. And a lot of times when you get to that point, there's a lot of bitterness and resentment on the partner's behalf because they're like, oh, like you're feeling down, you're having fatigue, you're not feeling like, you're wanting to be out there. Like I guess I must be the bad guy because they immediately took my suffering as their responsibility. And I notice that can happen a lot of times with partners because they feel responsible for your emotions. If you're dealing with a partner that feels very responsible for your emotions, meaning how you feel is a personal responsibility to them, then if you feel like you're suffering, they're thinking that they're the cause. They automatically put themselves as I'm the blame, I'm the cause. And so the next mistake that you can make in your PMDD relationship is, the lack of communication. A lot of times when I was experiencing a lot of suffering in PMDD, I didn't always communicate that immediately to my partner because I knew that it was so triggering for them. So I kept it to myself and I thought I was doing the right thing. And I know a lot of times when I'm counseling private clients, they think that they're doing the right thing by not telling their partner how much they're suffering, by acting like they're okay when they're really not. And I will never go down that rabbit hole and do that again because once you start portraying yourself differently in PMDD, it's not sustainable because when you have those really hard months where you can't hide it and then you all of a sudden show your emotions and how you really have these emotional ups and downs in PMDD, your partner's going to be like, why are you all of a sudden acting like this? Like when you're normally in PMDD, you don't act like this. So now it's going to seem like you're switching it up on them when in reality, you've been suffering like this all day long. And so what I'm really getting into the mindset of doing is not necessarily every symptom that I'm having in PMDD. Like I'm going to be like, hey, I'm having this. I'm having bloating right now. I'm having sensitivity to noise. I'm having rejection sensitivity. It's not that level of over explaining PMDD. It's more so of a level of giving my significant other, the person that I'm dating, the heads up that, hey, I'm feeling like this right now. Like this is where I'm at. If they're asking how I'm feeling and I'm not fine, I'm no longer in a position to tell a partner that I'm feeling fine when I'm not really feeling fine. Like I'm not doing that again. I used to do that all the time. But they'd be like, "Oh, how are you feeling?" I'm feeling great when I really was suffering in PMDD because of my symptoms. I'm not going there anymore because it didn't help my relationship. I saw how that really damaged it because it confused the partner that I was with because they were like, well, sometimes when you're in PMDD, you're fine. And sometimes when you're in PMDD, you're not. And really in the times that I wasn't, when I wasn't okay in PMDD, it was when I was being the most authentic. And so the next thing that can ruin, the mistakes that you can be making in your PMDD relationship is ignoring boundaries. I have a PMDD morning routine that I do every single day, whether I'm in my luteal phase, my follicular phase, all of the things. And I set the boundaries. I just didn't be so firm in them that it was like a non-negotiable. I mean, I ended up doing it, but when your partner doesn't respect the boundaries that you set within PMDD, meaning I'm setting this boundary because I know in order to feel my best in PMDD, these are the things that I need to do. It can lead to feelings of overwhelm and burnout. So you're feeling overwhelmed because you're putting up these boundaries and your partner's not respecting them, and then you're feeling like you can't keep the boundaries because it's damaging the relationship, because you end up suffering trying to keep the boundaries, and they're feeling, the burnout because they're trying to set boundaries. Like, I know a lot of partners who don't have PMDD, they're like, I just need to have space during your luteal phase. Like, I need more space because it's a lot of things that you're doing in PMDD is very triggering. And when a partner doesn't respect those boundaries and forces you to be in environments that don't make you feel good, then all of a sudden you can end up in this scenario where your partner is trying to create this boundary in PMDD and you're instinctively going against it. So it's overwhelming because you're like, I know what it is that I need to do. I know the boundaries that I need to set, but my partner's not respecting them. So the next mistake that you can make in your PMDD relationship is assuming that PMDD is permanent. Every single month you go into PMDD, you're saying it's always going to be like this. This is the catastrophizing. You're taking the fights that you have in PMDD, the conflict that you have in PMDD. Thanks, oatmeal and bones. You're taking all of that and you're basically saying it's always going to be like that. So when you're putting that in your mind that it's always going to be like that, thinking that the intense emotional and physical symptoms that you have during PMDD are going to last forever, subconsciously you're telling your brain that you're never going to get out of this realm of suffering. And so you're talking to your partner the same way, like, oh my gosh, every month I'm going to be like this. It's always going to be like this. And so you're forgetting that PMDD is cyclical. You're forgetting that PMDD is approximately 10 to 14 days out of the month, 7 to 14 days out of the month. It is not all month long. But what this does is it creates this level of fear and anxiety because you're getting to this point where you're telling yourself in your brain that PMDD is your life. Your life is PMDD. And in reality, your life is not PMDD. 2 weeks out of the month, this is your life. And when you kind of calibrate that, the mistake that you make is operating as if you're continuously suffering all month long. You don't have a break. It doesn't even allow you to enjoy your follicular phase with your partner because you're always thinking about going back into PMDD. Have you ever, and I used to be like that. I used to be in this situation where I went through hell during 2 weeks of PMDD with my partner. And instead of enjoying my good days, enjoying my follicular days, I was fearing that I was going to go into PMDD again. And so I got into months like towards the end of our relationship where we were just not enjoying anything. And so the next mistake that you can make in your PMDD relationship is failing to track your PMDD symptoms in your cycle. So if you don't track your symptoms and when you begin to initially feel them, then you're going to be unprepared, right? You're not going to have a plan for when you experience PMDD symptoms. If you're not consistently tracking them, how you're feeling, what you're feeling on every given day. This is why I created the PMDD Partners Journal, because it is where you can tell your partner how you're feeling on every day of your cycle. If your partner doesn't know how you're feeling, they're not going to know how to support you. If you're not checking in with yourself on how you're feeling, if you're assuming that how you felt last month is how you're going to feel this month, that's a mistake because every month in PMDD is going to be different. And if you're not operating in a daily check-in towards how you're feeling, then you're going to get into these realms of increased tension and fighting with your PMDD partner because they're not going to know what's going on with you. If you follow me on Instagram, you know I track my cycle every single day out of the month, all 31 days of my cycle, whether I'm in ovulation, whether I'm in menstruation, whether I'm in my luteal phase and PMDD, or whether I'm in my follicular phase, my good days. Every single day I'm tracking my symptoms, and that is what's required. If you have PMDD, you need to be tracking your symptoms every single day. So this is the work that I do with my private clients. So if this is something that you're like, Dr. Rose, I don't even know where to start, you need to go to inlovewithpmdd.com, get those counseling sessions so I can give you a strategy session on how you can track your PMDD symptoms within your relationship. Because if you're not tracking them, and if you don't know how to communicate the way that you're tracking them to your partner, it's going to cause you to have those unnecessary fights and those arguments. And the next way is the next mistake that you're making in your PMDD relationship is you're overcompensating during your non-PMDD days. And I used to do this so often. When I got in my follicular days, I was all of a sudden doing extra things to make up for all of my PMDD days. And you know what I realized in that? Because again, these are mistakes that you're making, but I know that you're probably doing them and you're thinking that you're doing the right thing. What used to happen with me is I used to try to do extra And I would burn myself out during my follicular days, during my good days, because I felt like I had to make it up to my partner because I was in PMDD. And that was the mentality I had. And then I thought about it one day and I was like, I shouldn't have to make up. If my partner had cancer, and they had like, a very hard bout with that, and they were down and out for however long, I wouldn't expect them, when they started to get back on their feet and feel better, to make it up to me. And I was like, what is this mentality that I'm feeling like I need to earn my partner's love, affection, attention, and validation, all of the things that I need out of a relationship? Why do I feel like I need to earn it? Now I need to work really hard for it because I was showing up less than who I was. I said I never want to feel like that again. It was such a feeling where it really damaged a lot of my self-worth because I started to feel like a lesser version of myself towards my partner when I experienced PMDD symptoms. And I said, you know what? In my next relationship, in my next serious relationship, I really desire and I'm going to be intentional with being with someone that sees the value in me all month long, whether I'm in PMDD or whether I'm in my follicular days, where I'm in menstruation, whether I'm in ovulation, that my value is not going to be determined by the phase of my cycle that I'm in. That is a requirement for me because I cannot be defined by my menstrual cycle and how I am as a partner. I am able to provide different things during different phases of my menstrual cycle. I will admit, like, I'm not delirious to think that I don't have more strengths in my my follicular phase than I do in my luteal phase, but there are things that I can provide. And I really thought about that. I was being very intrinsic because I was working with a client on this. I was like, okay, when you get into your luteal phase, you may not be able to show up the way that you do in your follicular phase when you're in your good days, but what is it that you can do? What value can you provide to the relationship? What value can you provide to your partner? Because it's almost like an all or nothing thing. You feel like, oh, if I can't be like this, then I guess I'm completely worthless. That's not the case. You're not completely worthless just because you're not in your follicular days. So it's a matter of picking a partner that thinks that you're beautiful, whether you're in PMDD or you're not in PMDD, that thinks that you're amazing, that thinks that you're entertaining, that thinks that you're fun to be around, that loves your personality, even if you're just in your luteal phase and PMDD and you're laying on the couch and you're just relaxing or you're more internal, but they still enjoy your company, right? That takes a very strategic kind of intentional dating, intentional being with someone. It's not like, oh, I need to fix myself in order to be in this relationship. It's like, hey, my partner loves me, adores me, wants to be around me, whether I'm in PMDD or whether I'm in ovulation or whether I'm in my menstruation or whether like I'm still me. Listen. So it's a matter of just being in that place where you're accepting who you are, accepting that there's dualities within you, accepting that there's quadruple, accepting all the phases of who you are. And the next mistake that you could be making, thank you. The next mistake that you could be making in your PMDD relationship is not practicing self-care. If you don't have a morning routine, evening routine, if you don't have a routine period, that's a problem. That is a problem. Coding. So if you don't have a routine, then it's hard to tell your partner what it is that you need. Meaning, I have a PMDD partner morning routine and I've gone over it a couple of times, but I'll go back over it again. When I wake up in the morning, the first thing I do is I drink lemon water. I listen to a lot of spiritual teaching. I read my Bible. I pray. I move my body. I move my body. I and exercise, whatever that looks like. I also walk my dog. I check in with my daughter. If I'm dating someone, I check in with my partner. These are things that I do on a daily basis. I have to get outside, whether it's sunny or not sunny. I go and I walk at least, and I don't even put because I used to be very rigid with this, like I need to walk this many miles a day. No, no, no. I just go outside and walk. And I think when you're in PMDD, when you release the boundaries, it makes your morning routines or evening routines better. If your morning routine is like you just sleep in, do what works for you. I know for me, I experience the bulk of my symptoms in the morning. So I really need to rewire my brain. I really need to like kind of like get all of the negative thoughts and feelings out that I may be having. I check in with myself and how I'm, feeling. And a mistake that you're making is not having a routine at all, meaning you're suffering with PMDD and the only thing that's going on is your PMDD symptoms. You have to think about that. If the only thing that you have going on is your PMDD symptoms, that's what's going to be taking over your mind. That's going to be taking over your body. That's going to be taking over your relationship. And a lot of times when I'm in PMDD, I set the boundary of I don't really communicate with my partner until I'm done with the first half of my morning routine because I don't want to say or do anything that I will regret later on. And the way that I can make sure that I'm not doing that is when I go and I do my walks or I do my workout or I, do whatever I'm doing, I get that dopamine. I get, free chemicals. Everybody asks like, what's the supplements that you're on? And it's natural chemicals that can be produced in your body by things that you do. You can reduce your stress by reducing your cortisol levels by going outside in nature. You can move your body and get endorphins. You can complete an activity like journaling or a checklist and get that dopamine. These are natural chemicals within your body that will reduce your PMDD symptoms that have nothing to do with your partner, have nothing to do with an outside source. It's all on you. And the next mistake that you can make in your PMDD relationship is blaming everything on PMDD. Like every issue that you have, every trigger that you have is on PMDD. A lot of times, PMDD is just bringing out issues that you already have with your partner, already have with your relationships. And it's not PMDD's fault. I always say it's like ripping the blanket off of all of the issues that you have with your partner. So a way to mitigate that is to deal with the issues that you have with your partner. I know in your follicular phase, you may be in that place where you are you're really you can take more. You can take more in your follicular phase than you can in PMDD. And the last mistake that you're making in your PMDD relationship is you're avoiding getting these PMDD relationship counseling sessions. You're avoiding getting professional help. You're leaving your PMDD symptoms untreated. You're believing that PMDD can be managed without external support, like counseling. And then it's causing more issues in your relationship because you're trying to handle something that you're not trained to handle. Remember, I have had PMDD for over 18 years, and it's taken me years to develop these tools that I provide on my counseling sessions. Even my doctorate in PMDD studies, like that took me 6 years of doctoral studies of dealing with all things PMDD while having PMDD, while, coaching PMDD partners and sufferers, hundreds and hundreds of interviews and you're not required to do all that. This is why I'm here. That's the benefit of having a mentor because you have someone that has been where you've been and you don't have to, I'm not requiring you to do 6 years of doctoral studies in order to help your relationship. I am here saying, listen, I am giving you the tools that are research based and not research based by things that are in the literature in a sense of like, especially with PMDD, I literally created the bulk of my tools because they weren't there. I saw a gap. I'm like, wait a minute, there's no PMDD relationship tools out there. There's people that can make things up. Like there's people that can like tell you, like, yeah, I specialize in PMDD and never have had PMDD a day in their life. And so you go to, get help from them and they literally have no idea what you're talking about and they're trying to like use other methodologies and say, oh, I'm just going to give you cognitive behavioral therapy and that's going to help you with your PMDD. Well, it's cyclical. Like it's cyclical. It's on a cyclical basis. And there's no actual psychology out there, therapeutic practice that's cyclical outside of the ones that I've developed. And that's been very strategic in that I don't do basic things, basic counseling practices, because I know that they're only going to work for you in your follicular days. I was you. I was that person that went to counselors, therapists, psychologists, all these things, and they would give me these tools. And what would happen is they would work in my follicular days, and then I would go into PMDD, and then all of a sudden they wouldn't work anymore. And all I did was beat myself up and felt like there was something wrong with me because the tools weren't working. The tools weren't working because basically they weren't meant for that. So these are the 10 mistakes that you're making in your PMDD relationship. If these are things that you know that you need help with, go to inlovewithpmdd.com, get those counseling sessions. And until next time, we got this. Love you. I hope this PMDD episode helped you and your partner in your struggles within your relationship. And if this is something that you know that you need help with and you need further support, individualized support, make sure you're going to inlovewithpmdd.com and you're getting those private sessions to really work through what you're going through in your relationship, specifically in regards to PMDD. And also, I want you to leave a 5-star written review on Apple Podcasts. What this does is it helps other PMDD sufferers and partners find this show that can help them get these free PMDD relationship tools. I remember what it felt like to not know that there were tools out there specifically for PMDD relationships. So I want to make sure that you are sharing these tools with others, share them on your social media, share them with people that you know that are also struggling in their PMDD relationships. Until next episode, this is Dr. Rose, your PMDD relationship psychotraumatologist. One more thing, I almost forgot. I now have the Fresh Start PMDD Partners Workbook. What this workbook can do is if you've had past traumatic experiences with your partner, past fights, past arguments, and they keep coming up every single month in PMDD, I created a Fresh Start Workbook so that you can deal with all of the traumatic experiences that have happened in the past in PMDD rage and all of these things so you can stop going through the same cycle again and again and again. So get that workbook. It comes with a video episode of the actual podcast that I recorded on getting a fresh start in your PMDD relationship. So you're not continuing the same cycle again and again and again. So make sure that you get that workbook. And if you need those individualized counseling sessions, you know where to go, inlovewithpmdd.com. Until next time, we got this. Love you.